Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about building a team. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, what are the different skills that you're trying to add to a software engineering team when you are forming a team to make it a complete team? We should make that a drinking game. How many, take a sip every time someone says team. Alright, well, that's a great question. The boring answer is that it depends on the sort of team that I need to construct. So if you are in a very small startup or a very small company, usually the thing that you need is more broader profiles of people who can do all the things, because and this is sort of the thing that I've said, that this is why I define as the true senior, because the term senior for today is to me a big joke. Where we slap senior on anybody who has like 5 years of work experience, even though they don't know the first thing about anything outside of their little area of expertise. But a true senior, in my opinion, is an individual who has reached a level of experience where they understand the entire process of delivering software to, in this case, it's web development. And that is an individual who understands how to build a server, set up a database, like these basics, so forth, doing authentication, set up a front end like a UI or whatever, if it's a UI application, host that in some type of cloud provider, or like host it in some way, set up like the host, like the DNS records, etc., put up logging systems, alerts, all of this sort of stuff, all the things that are necessary, quote unquote, in order for you to have a modern modern web application. Now, what you are trying to do when you're setting up a team, if that team is responsible for that entire thing, which is usually the case at smaller companies, is that you're trying to find people who know all of that stuff. You're trying to find profiles that fit that. Ideally, if it's possible, you want to find one person who can do all of that stuff. That is, well, you're very lucky if you can do something like that. It's not everybody who can do that, because if you find such an individual, you've basically found well, they call them unicorns. And unicorns are, as you can imagine, sort of rare. But lacking that, the thing that is usually my best bet for making a strong software team is to try to find, like, you segment things out into front-end developer or full-stack developer, back-end developer, ops, etc. And in a small company, you try to get as much as possible. If I think that the best bet is for you to get a really strong back-end developer usually, because that area, especially in the early days, has a larger amounts of responsibility tied to it. Because if you're going to bake together back-end with DevOps and all this other stuff into one role, that is usually a much bigger area than if you just have a front-end developer. But with that said, if you can get such an individual, then the complementing skills would be a front-end engineer of some sort with a flair for design, etc. If you have the budget for this. Otherwise, as I said, you're looking for a unicorn basically. But at larger scales, it might be different, because the application structure might be different. In a large company, I've worked in a few of these, the really large companies, they have products where they don't even have a real backend. Like, it's basically like an API ecosystem of different services that you consume, and then it's all front-end developers that you need practically. And in that situation, you might need different skills than if you're working in as like a full-fledged, like traditional monolithic application or something like that. And then you have situations where you only need backend developers because the system that you're dealing with is just a service that is its only clients are other services, and then you don't need any backend developers either. So when it comes to creating a steady team, it really is, as I said, down to understanding what are the necessities of the specific application that you are building. And that comes down to experience. And we can sit here, like, I know that doesn't sound so fun because of course you want me to give you some type of practical examples of how to do these evaluations, but the reality is that if I don't have, and this video will not be enough for me to just go through every single role and the ideal skills of each person that they could have potentially in all the different permutations of a team composition that you can be looking for. But as I said, if you at the very least understand how the entire sphere of tools and work processes work for delivering a web application, then you know the skills that are necessary, and then it's really down to who can you find which is a very good fit that gives you like the maximum amount of bang for your buck, and then adding complementing skill sets to that person. Ideally you could find one person to do it, but it's very unlikely. So what I want you to take away from this is that the skills that I'm looking for usually are, it's the same skills for basically every web project. It comes down to finding a good combination of as many of those skills as possible in one individual, or if we're at a larger scale, as I said, in some cases you might not need a backend developer, or you might not need an ops person and so forth, because you have other teams that already provide that sort of functionality to the team that you're establishing. Then it's really down to finding people with a very more like a pointy skill set, like they're specialists, if that makes sense. And that really is what it comes down to. And of course all the other things like making sure that they are a good social culture fit and all that good stuff fits into the whole thing. But I would say that we don't have to go into that, because I feel that it's sort of given that everybody in the team needs to have a certain level of social skills in order to fit in to the company and so forth. So I very strongly suggest that this is yet again one of those motivations that I have for, if you're going to hire software developers, you need to know what they're looking for. An example would be with my little case there with the backend APIs and like not having a traditional web backend that you're catering to, is that in situations where I've been like that, it's actually not that you're just writing front-end code with a create React app thing. You're actually running like a web server where you have a backend for front-end type of deal, and in that case you actually need a full stack JavaScript developer together with like whatever purebred front-end developers you have. And that ties into, once again, as I said, do you understand the work? Do you understand the architecture of the system? And do you understand what skills are necessary to deliver on in that specific area? For tech leads and people like myself, that's like it's a cakewalk. It's nothing, because you know the work. For engineering managers and people who are like not actual software developers, this is basically impossible. They're just basically swinging blindly, trying to understand, okay, this is roughly the stack, and then they just put the tools on the CV, and then they pray that they're going to find the right person for that given job. Both approaches are going to work to a certain extent, but it's usually more effective for you to make sure that the people who are doing the hiring are people who actually know what skills are necessary for a given role. Have a great day.